Matt Del Vecchio here, specializing in home care, elder care planning, and the senior living industry. Thank you for tuning in. Life Unrehearsed is aired on the last Sunday of every month, and I try to tackle topics that are affecting families as our population ages and our healthcare system that is struggling to keep up. Well, I hope you're enjoying your day. Do you realize that in just 2 more weeks, it's time to change our clocks? That's right. We're springing forward an hour in just 2 weekends with daylight savings time. All right, we're getting through this winter. I could feel it. And next thing you know, we're changing our clocks. So how about that? You know, in my world, I get a lot of questions about senior living. So I figured I'd dedicate a small segment to some of the senior living trends that I'm seeing out there. Now, first of all, senior living could mean a lot of things. So I like to break it down into the following segments. First of all, we have what's called the 55-plus style condos and apartments. You know, these are nice buildings with some common areas, but there are very few services, and there are limited amenities and very independent living for those 55 and up. Generally speaking, it's people in their 60s and 70s and 80s that will be living in the 55-plus style apartments. The next level up would be what we refer to as RPAs. You hear this on the news quite a bit. An RPA is a résidence privée pour aînés. That's where we get the RPA, basically a retirement home as we would normally refer to it. And many of the RPAs have services and amenities such as there's usually going to be a dining room, there's going to be care services if ever required. There's call buttons in the apartment, usually in the bathroom, living room, and bedroom. If you're not feeling well, you press that button, someone's going to see you 24/7. There's always activities, and some of the bigger ones will have some things like pools and gyms and movie theaters, dépanneurs, and pharmacies. Some really, really nice ones out there. Within the RPA, there's 3 categories. There's independent living, there's assisted living, and memory care. Memory care for those for neurological disorders like Alzheimer's and dementia-related diseases like that, where they have staff and floors that specialize in memory care. And then the next level up from RPAs, that would be what we refer to as long-term care homes or nursing homes, otherwise known in Quebec as CHSLDs, Centre d'hébergement de soins de longue durée. Okay, so I'm going to talk about trends in each of those categories. I'm going to start with the RPAs. And you know what? There's not too many new builds on the island of Montreal, which is a little unfortunate. There's a big demand, but there's not too many new builds. And regarding independent living RPAs, many nice ones as I've described. However, if you're looking for a 2-bedroom unit in Montreal, outside of Montreal, you might find it difficult. They're in high demand. Most builders are doing 1-bedrooms with some 2-bedrooms. The 2 bedrooms are getting gobbled up quick. So we're having difficulty with our clients finding good 2-bedroom units in RPAs, just to give you a heads up there in terms of being proactive. However, if you are interested in a 1-bedroom, we're seeing some trends there that there's still ample inventory by and large, and there's some room for negotiation, okay? And what I mean by that, rent is very difficult to negotiate. Usually that's set in stone, the actual rent cost. However, you know, you could try negotiating for things like indoor parking or meals or housekeeping. Some are even offering a month's free rent at the end of the term of the rent. Most rents are 1-year leases, and some of them are giving that month free. If there is a waiting list for these RPAs, then obviously the specials and negotiation power is going down. But if there's ample inventory, try to negotiate a better deal for yourself. And what I'm also seeing in the market out there is some more demand for care services. Let's face it, our population is aging. You might start with independent living, but as you age, you're going to require some more care services. So we're getting more demand for residences and senior living communities that provide care. And sometimes there's waiting lists, even on care floors. So just bear that in mind as well, because, you know, it's no use going into an independent living apartment when you know you're going to need care in a year or two. To avoid that double transition, always try to look for a place that can offer that continuum level of care. All right. And I also want to just mention the tax credits that's available in RPAs, again, retirement homes. Basically, you need to be over 70 years old, and it usually works out to about 10 to 15% of the monthly rent. So just to throw some numbers out there, if you're paying $2,500 a month for a nice RPA, expect to get back $250 to $300 from the provincial government every month. And the more services you take, including meals, the higher the credit will be. So I get asked sometimes, okay, but does it depend? Is it income dependent? And the answer is yes, but the threshold is pretty high. So for example, if your annual income, not your assets, you could have a ton of assets in the bank, you could own your home. We're talking your annual income. If it's less than $69,000 per year for your household, you'll get 100% of that tax credit. And then there's a scale that moves upwards if your income is higher than that. But the odds are there is some government money out there. And I just want to stress that because we're very lucky in a sense. We knock Quebec, our healthcare system and so on, but you know what? We're one of the only provinces that offer that provincial tax credit for private retirement homes. We do business ourselves in the rest of the country, and Quebec is one of the few that actually offers financial incentives for RPAs. In fact, believe it or not, there's about 17% of the Quebec population that are in some form of senior living communities, whereas the national average in Canada, it's about 8%. Why? A lot of it has to do with those financial incentives by the province of Quebec. So kudos to the government for recognizing that there's long waiting lists in the long-term care homes, but now it's time to invest in some of the retirement homes. Now, let's quickly talk. You're listening to Life Unrehearsed, by the way, Matt Delvecchio, and I'm talking about some of the latest senior living trends in the market in Montreal and Greater Montreal. I want to talk about long-term care homes for a second, or CHSLDs. Most of the long-term care homes, now we're talking public residences. There's no such thing as a public RPA, okay? So the only public residences are long-term care homes. We do have a real issue in Montreal. The waiting list for public long-term care homes are absolutely ridiculous. We're talking anywhere from 1 to 3 years to get into a permanent bed into a CHSLD, and depending on which long-term care you select. What happens is you go to transition bed in the meantime, and the problem is you have no choice where that transition bed is going to be. So that's very stressful for families, when we get into that long-term care area. So, the new CHSLDs are actually very nice. They call them Maisons des Aînés, but they're not building enough of them, and certainly not nearly enough in Montreal. So part of the solution is that we do need an increase in the CLSC home care services. I know there's lots of talk, but we'd like to see more action. And barring that, if it's just not sustainable and you've got that 1 to 3 year waiting list to get into long-term care, some families are actually going to one of these private RPAs in the meantime until their name gets called. So there are several options out there. In general, my number one recommendation is to be proactive. If you or a loved one are reconsidering a transition, try to start searching, start looking. Call us, and there are other companies like mine as well that will help out free of charge to give you some guidance, because we don't want to be in crisis mode. We get a lot of calls where it is crisis mode. We need help right away, and always best to be proactive.